Hello and welcome everyone to our Saturday stream. I'm Josh and this is our Fantasy Grounds map and image creation. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is where we go over all of the art related information with Fantasy Grounds Unity, including any upcoming changes or new releases and such. But specifically oriented around all of the art side of what's going on here. So on the horizon, we have new dice skins and effects coming out, which is super exciting. That should be one of the next big kind of updates to Fantasy Grounds in the art side of things, and that should be super cool. Hey, Jiminy, welcome. And I think that's pretty much it for what's on the immediate kind of upcoming stuff. And we have recently released 2 art packs last month, which was Fantastic Ships and Fantastic Space, which is kind of goes in tandem with the Spelljammer release, creating those types of environments as well as ships and whatnot in combination with some of the other art packs. So exciting stuff, and we have built this in the last couple of streams here. This is our ship, and then today we're actually going to be building a cool environment and doing a rather alien kind of environment as well. Something to kind of go along with that stuff. So that should be super exciting. Thanks everyone for joining me, as I said, and I hope everyone has had a great week and all of your games and things are going exceptionally well. So let's jump right into this today. And we'll close this down. I'm going to create a new image record, and we can do it right from here. Excuse me. Now let's go into our fantastic space here. And I'm just going to grab one of these backgrounds. And we have several different options. And I also have a bunch of pre-made kind of maps that you can kind of build on top of as well. I'm going to show you how you can use these in your environments in addition to what's already been here. So we can use any elements that we wish as a fill element, and then we can use that to create, as I said, you can build out certain elements from within any image using the new fill system, which is super exciting and very cool. So I'm going to grab one of these like standard, just kind of like backgrounds, something like this, and I'm just going to create a new image record. Right from there. We're going to turn off our lighting for now, and let's expand this out. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change this over. I'm going to use this to get my whole image thing going here. As you can see here, we just have this rather generic kind of space. We could use several different elements here, and we're going to be using some of these as fill elements, as I said, to make a rather unique kind of area here. Now, instead of using this background here, and you can see this has already set this to our rather standard 100 by 100, I'm going to delete this, but first I'm going to create a new painting record here. I'm going to use the exact same base 6 background here, and we're going to turn off our stroke, and we're going to use this as our fill element. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because we can change the size of this rather easily without making lots of different layers here. We can do this all in this one painting layer. I'm going to switch over to my rectangle, and I'm just going to drag out something similar in size. I believe that each one of these are 25 by 25, but it doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to kind of drag this out. You can see that this is all seamless. All of these are created in a seamless manner so that you can use them this way. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to delete that. Now the cool thing about this is that if I select this, you can see now I can continue to expand this in any direction that I wish. And I don't have to fumble around with specific sizes and whatnot. I can just kind of do it on the whim here. And let's just jump in here and do, I think we'll keep this on its own separate layer. And so we'll just call this star BG background. And what we can also do by using the fill layer is that we can come back in and adjust a lot of these elements after the fact as well. So I could change the color of this, for example, take away all the red by holding down the R and moving the mouse wheel. I can do the same with the G. for the green and also the blue. So I can change the colors of this after the fact. And oh yeah, that's awesome, Samuel. Yeah, the Spelljammer campaign is rather interesting. I kind of like it. It's this kind of mix between um, sword and sorcery, and kind of like almost. It's not really like sci-fi, but it kind of is. It's kind of got that flair to it. So it's kind of a cool mixture there. So now what we can do is we can grab some of these other more colorful elements like this. We're going to create a new painting layer. It's going to be right above it. And I'm actually going to grab my ellipse tool at this time, and we're going to replace this fill element with something like this, for example. And you can see here, like this has a lot of color and it's bright. And so what I can do is I can just drag out a section of this. And the cool thing about using these fill elements is we can fade out these edges, we can add more to it, we can change its shape, we can do all of these things. So I'm going to jump over in here. I'm actually going to hold down to do the fade on the edge here. All we have to do is hold down F and use our mouse wheel. You can see we can fade that right out. But before I do that, let's make it all the way up to here. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to switch my overlap mode to add, not subtract, add. And with this, I can actually add in other elements. You can see this is going to join this right together. So I can make some interesting kind of shapes here. We can actually use this fill kind of element too. I'm going to show you this shortly to make, with some of these backgrounds, our own planet shapes. And we can do that with lots of different textures and things along that lines. Cool stuff. We might even want to subtract a little bit from over here and make this an even more interesting shape here. And we can come into our edit mode here, and we can move these around. Oh, looks like we have a question here. Are there any merge or combine layers? Is there a way to create duplications, I'm assuming, without creating new layers? Well, yes and no. Uh, there is no way to actually combine layers into a single layer. But what you can do, and this is what this functionality of the folder is that it puts all of those things into a folder, all of the separate layers, but it then acts as though that they are all one layer. And I'll demonstrate that today as well. It's a super useful technique that I use all the time. And what it actually does, and then we're just kind of creating like this nebula kind of shape here, and I'm just going to grab some of these and move them. And we're going to be fading this edge out, so we don't have to be too precise about our little shape here. And then we can go over into here and fade this right out. Yeah. So what we can actually do, we can't, and this may be something that comes into the future. We might be able to combine layers in the future down to different elements, but one of the hurdles of that currently is that different layers function differently. So if I were to drag and drop something in here like this, this image layer is handled differently by the system than this painting layer. So trying to combine those might be problematic, as well as all of the different kind of functionalities that we have in our layer system. We have effects layers and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's right. Yes. And right, what we want to do, and one of the reasons why not being able to do that or export images is because that there is a lot of copyrighted information in all of the different modules and whatnot, and being able to access those and exporting those is not something that we're really at liberty to kind of create. Here we're just kind of creating an interesting shape here. And I think we'll actually make this faded out a little bit more here. And see, some of these weird things is here is it's fine. We're gonna actually grab some of this stuff. We can change these where these things are. See here where this kind of folds in on itself. Kind of pull this out. We can actually, what I'll do is I'll just double click and select all of these, and we're just going to simplify this shape so that we have a lot less here kind of mess around with. And ones that we don't need, like maybe this one, we can just remove that. Basically, all I'm trying to create is a nice little interesting kind of nebula. And we can just delete those. We don't really need those ones. So the simpler this shape is, even with it faded out, the easier time we're going to have kind of manipulating it. Getting it to do what we want. So there we have a nice little kind of interesting shape here that we have in the background. What we can do is we can switch over to our Fill Edit tab. We can move this around. We can scale it and rotate it. And we can also change its colors by holding down R, G, or B, or all of them at the same time. I think what we'll do is let's take away some of that green. More along these lines. A little bit more of the green we'll move away from. Down some of that red as well, so it's not so vibrant. You want to have a good sense of light to it, but you don't want to be taxing on the eyes. Oh, no problem at all. FGA? No, I appreciate the questions. But for all, and actually putting all of your layers together in a folder actually works great. I think it actually works better than collapsing them down, because you can then still edit each individual layer, but then using them all at the same time as well. So it gives you kind of the best of both worlds. Great. And now we can actually start to add in some additional kind of elements here. We can jump back in and grab these at any time, move these and add them in as additional kind of content. So here we have some already made up kind of star fields for fills. And this is just kind of to add into any kind of environment. One of the things that I've actually been using something along these lines for, without the black background, is to add particles in particular areas that are not necessarily. I did some in some. I was making a map the other day that was more of swampy water, and I used this star fill to add some like debris elements into the water. And it works exceptionally well. Let's go into our decorations here. This is where we have most of the, and these items can be either dragged and dropped or just kind of placed around. And as I was saying before, we have all of these pre-created planets and moons and whatnot, all with different kind of elements to them. And here we have even like suns and so on. But you can also create your own. You can use, and the ellipse tool is excellent for that as well. And if you have any sort of texture that's along these lines, and I can kind of show you how this works. The only downside to it is that here we have, as you can see, that the way that these are shaped, it kind of gives that spherical kind of element to it, which you will not have in your own kind of created shapes here. I have all of the very basic kind of elements that you might want to use in your environments. And so I do have some pre-created kind of elements like this, but I'm going to show you how to use all of these and use these in lots of different ways. create a new painting layer here. And you can add in an element. Whoop, we didn't want that to happen. Try that one more time here. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting bug that's happened there. Well, let's just grab and drag and drop it out. You can do something along these lines. Into our layers tab. And you can see you can kind of just drag and drop this into place. This is kind of set up to be that kind of in the immediate vicinity. You're kind of looking over the planet as you're looking out into these areas. And then you can use some of these celestial kind of elements like this. And we'll create a new painting tab here. And we'll go back into this. I'm going to drop this down in, make this bigger. Drop this in underneath. And then we can always change these colors as well, right? So let's get rid of that green. And you could do something along these lines as well. And get that feeling that some sort of element is coming right over the horizon there. Now you can do this with just the effects as well. So let's delete that layer and I'll show you how to do this. Grab an effects layer and we'll drop it down here. We'll go into our effects tab. What I'll actually do is we're going to create adjust colors. We're going to make it rather bright. Let's take away our blue, green. Make it kind of yellowy. Something rather bright like this. And this is underneath our planet, so we're going to be doing it here. And we'll create a mask. And then all you have to do is draw whatever shape that you want behind there, and then we can blur that out. See that this will create like a really nice glowing object. That's a little bit weirdly shaped. Let's actually add a new mask. And you can do things along these lines as well. And so we'll delete that for right now. And we're actually I'm going to get rid of this as well. And then we're going to go in, we're going to grab one of these planets. And so we have a question from Facebook. Do you always use the Unity interface or do you ever do streams of map design in Photoshop? So this Saturday stream is because I work with SmiteWorks. I create all the art packs, the official SmiteWorks art packs, as well as do a lot of the art-related stuff for them. I do work for the company, and that's my primary focus. Yes, I have done streams in the past before Unity came out, where we did worked in Photoshop. And if you guys ever have interest in doing just like an art stream, I can always put together an art stream for you guys as well. I can show you how I go through the creative process and. But I use lots of different programs besides Photoshop. I actually do a lot of like the drawing process in more drawing or painting programs, but I do use a lot of Photoshop as well. So let's say you want to do something similar with one of these other planets here, right? So let's say we have something along this lines and we want to create that same kind of effect. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come into, we're going to use this as a fill once again. And what I'm going to do is create this kind of environment where I can, let's add in another painting layer here. And I'm just going to, we don't want to be in tracked here. Just going to drag this out. You can see we're going to get a whole bunch of planets here. But that's not really what I'm interested in because we can change this in the edit fill here. Move this around, but we can also scale it. So I can scale this up. And you can see I can cut this right off at the edge here and create the same kind of effect. I think we'll do it a little bit smaller. Do it like this, and then I can come into this edit tab and I can just move this in. So I basically can take any object that I have. Oh yeah, well thanks, Samuel. Well, I'd love to see your stuff too. What kind of stuff do you like to enjoy creating? And if I want to add clouds to this as well, I can do exactly the same kind of scenario here. What I'll do is I'll go back into my fill and I'm going to grab these clouds. And I'm going to drag out something similar. And here we can go into control and I can move this around, find something that's going to fit fairly well. And then we can jump in and adjust this accordingly. One up. And so we've just added clouds to our little planet here and done this all just using these kind of things that we have going on. Super easy to do. Now the advantage of doing it this way is here, and I'll show you an example of using the folder here. We can now grab all of these and put these right into our folder. Well, maybe we don't want to have this one in the folder. So let's say that we had separated these two elements here. I'm going to just make sure that that's on top. What I can actually do is when we're selecting all of these elements, we can do this all in here as well. I decide, oh, I want to expand this out, but I really like the positioning of this. I can just grab this. See, we can move this out to the side, kind of create this as we go. So we can actually adjust our image here all at the same time, which is super fun and easy. Oh yeah, a lot of sci-fi technology. Ah, very cool. Now to kind of exemplify what we've done here, another little example here. Let's go back into, well, bring our assets back up. Didn't want that. Let's go to our images. And the one that we created, finished up last time, this ship. Well, actually, we did the interiors as well. And what we actually did down here, and you can see this, we'll go into the ship top interior here. Went to our painting layer. We actually used one of these to create this like map table. And what we can actually do is go into our edit mode and we can move this around and do all kinds of cool interactive things that we did in the creation process. So as they kind of travel through, you could actually create a single image map, use it as a fill, and then you can have this interactive kind of thing. You could actually plot out areas. Because it's all of a seamless texture, we can just continue to kind of scroll it around and we could scale it and do all of these things. So you could do exactly the same kind of thing with fantasy style map and so on. And using that same kind of thought process, we can do the same thing with our environments. You can create this ever expanding environment or this movable kind of area. Lots of interesting stuff that you can kind of do with a little bit of creativity. Great. So if you guys have any suggestions on things that you'd like to see in the environment and whatnot, I think what we'll do is we'll finish up like this area up through here. We'll do like this cool kind of space scene, and then we're actually going to go and whatever the planet we have or whatever we've settled on, we can kind of go in and we're going to create the like an actual map for the area as well. We'll create a really cool kind of alien environment. So in here, as you can see, we have this. We can move this around and whatnot. So what I'm actually going to do is, because I want to actually work on the planet itself. I'm just going to double click on this part, and I'm just going to move it to the side for the moment, and then I can move it back really easily by double clicking on it. This way I can interact with this area here. I'm just going to change the colors here a little bit. We'll make it a little bit more yellowy, and we'll kind of bring out that green a little bit more. Maybe make it like a lush environment. And then see what I can do is I can just double click on this and move it right back to where it was. If you hold down Control, you can snap it to the grid. And where it's kind of snapped to the grid there, I'm just going to move this, and we'll kind of get that in place and see. Now we have these nice clouds over our little world down here. Oh yeah, we could do some satellites and whatnot for sure. Space station. We can use our yeah. We'll definitely do that. That sounds fun. Great. So let's go into our fantastic space here once again. I'm going to go into our decorations. I'm going to use some of these to start to build up some of the stuff in the area. We have asteroid belts and lots of these kind of celestial things, as well as lots of these kind of elements in addition to that. Let's create a new painting layer, and we're going to drop this down. Let's do it in front of this, but behind our planet. And we'll go into our stamp tool here, grab something like this. I think we'll move this in down here a little bit. I think what we'll do is we'll do that as a fill as well. I'm just going to delete this for the moment. And we'll go back in. And that way we can kind of just cut it off down here at the bottom. And then we can go into our edit mode over here, and I can move this around. Bring this stuff down so it... Let's snap everything to a grid here. And I'll do the same with the background, just so that we can have a nice clean edge. Something like this. Range. Let's turn on our grid slightly so I can actually see what's going on here. Oh yeah, we got that all done. We want to go here. Then we want to snap this to the grid. And that'll all line up. And we'll drag that out. Drag this over. Yeah, we can actually do it something like this. And now what we can actually do is just kind of drag this in and around like that. Make our adjustment here. Cool. So you can see how using these fill elements really adds that ability to make your images a little bit more cleaned up a little. We have a little bit poking out here at the bottom, but we got that pretty. Line all of these up. Perfect. And holding down Control allows you to snap to the grid unless you have grid snapping automatically turned on. So any of the shortcut keys will just do the opposite. So if you have this turned on, holding down Control will allow you to free place things. And let's jump over to our stamp tool, and then I think we'll grab something like this. Add a little bit extra background here. That. Once placed, you can still move it around. A little bit of this purple kind of sticking up. Cool. Maybe what we'll do is do some additional kind of planets and moons and things in the background here. So we can do the same thing. So if we have something along these lines, so let's grab maybe like this moon. I'm going to drop it back here. I'm actually going to lower down its opacity just a tad. Put it something like this. Maybe we'll move it over here. So here we have this other celestial body here. See, we have this nice shadow here. What we're going to do, let's do one for our planet as well. And we can do this in exactly the same way. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into this fill element. And I'm going to grab this guy, just this little faded kind of shape here. And again, what we can do is kind of drag this in here. And I'm just going to, again, snap this to the grid. I'm going to match it up here. To these other elements. And we can go into our edit over here, and I'm just going to make it nice and large. Something like this. And then I'm going to hold down R, G, and E. I'm going to make it dark. And look at that. We have this nice, same kind of shadow here. And I can control the size of this a bit bigger. Very cool. And what we can actually do is, well, we get a little bit smaller so it doesn't. Perfect. And we'll bring that edge in a little bit, this one. And now let's add in a little bit of a highlight along here as well. We're going to be creating like a sun or a star up through here. We're going to get most of our light here. Let's create an effects layer. We're going to create an adjust colors. Nope, not time of day. Adjust colors here. And we're going to increase the brightness. We're going to do something that's kind of orangey along these lines. Then we're going to create a mask here. What we're going to do is I'm just going to try to follow this edge here a little bit. Doesn't have to be exact. We're going to blur this out. I want to kind of out something like this. And you can see we get this nice little element here. Really, let's back off the edge here a little bit. So I'm going to go to hide area, and holding down Alt allows me to just kind of trim this back a little. We might even want to do a little bit on here as well. So back to fill area. And there we have some nice little highlights coming from whatever is casting these shadows. So it's going to be something back in this area here. Great. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do something similar. Let's grab this sun here. And again, I'm going to do it on the same painting layer here. We're going to go into our stamp tool. I'm going to make this a bit smaller. And we're going to do a lot of radiant light kind of coming off of this. Go into our adjust colors here. Do like a nice little circle around here. And this is just going to be, let's tighter in. Again, we don't have to be exact. We're just using this to brighten up this entire image here. We're going to be using some other stuff to kind of create more ambient kind of light coming up. Yeah. So let's go back in. We're going to go back into our stamp tool here, and we're going to go into a lower layer, something like here. Go back into my stamp tool. I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to hold down G and B. Red. Let's make it more yellow though. And that might be a little bit too bright. We've got to make that a little bit more transparent here. We want it to be so intrusive. And I think what I also want to do is maybe we'll grab a cloud like this. I want to do something that's a little bit lower down that opacity a bit. Something that kind of makes it feel as though the moon is kind of encased. It's got some of this stuff. That one, maybe we should even do it a little bit more transparent here. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And I think what we'll do is we could even drop in a couple of other little bits of debris floating around out here. Yeah, neat. You can see how building up these layers really add in a level of complexity that wouldn't normally exist there. Now, a great thing about the way that these tools are set up, let's say I want to add in a little bit more of these, I can just grab my little sample and I can, again, grab whatever element. I think that grab one right. So if you ever run into this problem, we're going into our fill over here. You could move things out of the way. It's easy enough for me to just kind of grab that same kind of cloud again. I just want to do a little bit extra so that these also feel as though there's something of this kind of cloudy interaction. I feel like that these clouds are like energized in some way. And we can do a little bit coming out from behind as well. We have this cool little trail of, you want to do that? This is where things kind of become painterly. That out for bring this out like this. And move this up. And then we can go over here. I'm going to change this now that we have it nice and something like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And something there. Yeah, I like that. We have this nice open space over here. And I'm going to grab this. Perfect. Howdy, the Windsor. Welcome. And we'll stamp a little bit of this stuff around. We'll actually move it back. Excellent. Maybe we should have a little bit more color consistency. So go back into this fill. We can actually maybe bring down blue a little bit, make this more. Have this fit in with some other color. Like this. Cool. Now we'll create a little space station down through here. We can go into our of some spaceship art pack, and in here we have lots of cool shapes and things. We can also use lots of the cool, and we have a kind of another pre-made background here. Lots of brushes, lots of decorations, and in these decorations, a lot of these can be used as fills, especially in all parts. We have a lot of these kind of elements. So let's see here. What will we make? And one of the great things about these are all kind of in these light grays, so we can make them any color we wish. And what we're going to kind of do here is we'll create our own folder for it. We'll do this planet, that folder. We'll create a new folder. Call this station. Let's add. We'll actually put underneath just because we'll do this little light glowing off of it. We can create a painting layer, and we can drop this right inside there. think we'll just grab one of these shapes. And the reason why I'm just gonna paint this all out initially in these colors, and then I can do the adjustment actually on each individual layer, or I can do it as a whole in our folder here. Should work out quite well for deciding what colors we want to do and so forth. But we can also do it. I mean, let me think about this. What would be the best way for us to kind of do this? Yeah, let me show you a couple of cool kind of fill techniques that we can use that we've already kind of done here, but I'll expand upon this a little bit. Let's go into our fill here. I'm going to grab, I'll show you, we're going to do this in a couple of different layers just so it's easier for us. But maybe we're going to grab something like this, just this generic texture, and then we can add certain elements onto it. We'll make like this rounded kind of station, but then we'll do like a ring around it. Or we could do lots of different ways. Yeah, but let's make something cool. Well, maybe what we'll do is, what do you guys think? Is there any specific kind of station that you guys are thinking of? Anything in particular? I'm just going to start creating here and see where it kind of goes. That. So one of the things that, if you notice, and here's a little trick, if you guys are unfamiliar with this. So based on the size of the ring, will determine how many points. Right? So if we were going to make a circle, and we were going to do it this big, as you can see, it's got a certain amount of points there. But let me just come over here. If I make a larger one, I'm going to have more points. And what you can always do is go into the tab here, and if you hold down Shift, this will all move the same. You can shrink this down. For example, something like this. You get a much rounder kind of shape out of it. And what we can come, and just for a demonstration purpose. And then you can come into your edit, and what we can actually do is make it bigger. Whatever we want for our base texture. And we can do a lot of really cool, interesting things doing something lines. So if we were to create, for example, we can create like a ring around this, and I could actually show you how to do this with fills as well, because you can subtract elements to it. You can make it so that you can remove it and have part of it looking like it goes behind, front of. I'm actually going to for interest. We can also, same trick that we did before. There's a couple of different ways that we can handle this, but we want to stick with our painting fill area here. We can fill in along these lines. Drag this over. And you know what we could actually do? Let's expand this. Hold down Shift, maintain its aspect lock ratio. We can actually build this quite large and then shrink it, whole thing. Why don't we try that? Back into the painting tab. I'm going to move it over. Make it big again. Our shadow. I'm going to hold down R, G, and B. This size. And then I can move this fill in. Probably have done this as a circle. Let's delete that and do it as a circle. We can match up to our shape rather than the outside area here. I'm actually going to make this a bit bigger. We can easily work on it. And then we can shrink down the whole thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go pretty close to the center of this. And I'm going to hold down Shift as I drag this out and Alt. That's going to allow me to maintain a circle as well as move out from the center here. Something like this, I think. Yeah. And I'm just going to move this fairly close to something like that. Again, go into our fill edit, make this dark, and I'm going to make it larger. And we'll move it to where we want it to be. Adjust it here a little. And we can just line them right up here. And with turning magnetic snap on, what I can do is just snap them right to. Perfect. I'm not going to worry about these highlights from here. We can turn that off right now. That these line up properly. We'll do something like that. So now we've created a perfect little element there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these into two layers. Let me show you how to do that really quickly. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer. Right, this is going to be exactly the same. The other one should be. Hold on, delete. Duplicate this. Like the textures are a little bit off, but that's fine. You go into the edit tab, see that it's all exactly the same. So what I'm going to actually do is on this layer, I'm going to delete this shadow. And then on this layer, here, this shadow I want it to be. And I'm just going to double click this and I'm going to move it to the side. And I'm going to delete this element. And I can move it back. And we can easily put that right back to where we wanted. Now what we've done is separated these two. This way I can kind of come in here underneath and paint in some additional kind of elements to this. Or I can add in things in between. We probably will. We'll create a new painting layer, add in some stuff. We'll go back into our decorations, and here we have lots of different stuff that we can start to place around on this. And again, we can still use fill elements, do lots of different types of adjustments if we want to cut something off, or if we wanted to maintain a thing on the shape. But we can also use stuff and kind of like stick them off of it well. We can add some window elements to it. See what kind of direction we might want to go with this. I think let's go over into here and let's change our colors first. Let's see what we want to make this for a color. I'm kind of thinking rather than having it something like grayish, maybe we'll give it a little bit of color, right? Could make it kind of coppery. Something along these lines. What do you guys think? Maybe a little bit deeper though. Yeah, I kind of like that. Hey, Paulette. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hit Control C and grab this hexadecimal code, just in case I need to use it once again. But you can see that all of the stuff that's on the inside here is now that. And what we can actually do is anything that we now paint onto these particular layers will adhere to what we've set here. So for example, if we come into this area and we grab a stamp, maybe we stamp something like this. You can see that that's going to adhere to that same kind of color changes. But if we alter this, let's make this a little bit more blue. You can see what it's going to do is it's going to add in the adjustments. So even if I make this quite dark, all it's going to do is going to add in whatever I'm doing here in addition to whatever else is going on. We can still change things. Now, if we want to make adjustments outside of that, let's say we want to make elements on the outside a little bit different, then we can just create a new painting layer. And a new painting layer, if you look, we're going to drag and drop this in here, back into our tab here. This one is no longer adhering to those same elements here. See, this, what it does is when we change this, it changes these ones in here independently. This one itself remains to be a little bit like a pass-through. Then if we were to go back into here, I drop this down underneath our shadow. Let's make this lighter, still blue. See, I can stamp this on here. And then we'll have like this blue kind of interior elements. But I think what we'll do is I'm going to add in one more kind of cool painting element here. I'm going to create like a ring, I think, and then we're going to place it in here and make some adjustments to it. We can create this like almost like a Saturn kind of ring around that's made of sort of material. Let's go back into our hull parts here. And maybe we'll make it out of this kind of material, make it a little bit different. Or actually, we'll use this one. You can see we already have like a kind of ring here, which we could actually use this too to simplify it, or we could do it any way that we wish. But well, actually, let's use this. We'll go through the entire process. So I'm going to use this as a fill. And I'm going to have my ellipse tool set up here. I'm going to move this over to the side and then I'm going to put it into position. One of the great things about this is that once we create something, we can move it around after the fact. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to hold down Shift, Alt, and Control. What that's going to do, it's going to snap to the grid. And it's also going to make sure that it comes out from the center. And also maintain an aspect lock ratio. Then I'm going to go into my subtraction mode. And I'm going to, again, go right towards the middle here. And I'm going to hold down Control, Shift, and Alt as well. And I'm going to drag out an eraser from the circle in the center. And now that it's a little bit off kilter, but that's okay because what I can actually do, I'm just going to hold down, let's see, I want to select all of this. I'm just holding down Shift to grab these ones that I didn't get. And because we stuck to the grid here, we grab this one as well. I can hold down Control, and this will also snap. Oh, I missed a couple. We can actually just. And we can make sure that that snaps to the grid as well. So now we have this like perfect kind of cutout circle here in the middle here. Now, because this is all on its own individual layer here, what I can actually do is I can change the size of this and I can squash it. So I can move it so that it's shaped like this. Then I can make it larger. I can still go back in and let's say, for example, I want to make sure that this seems like it's kind of moving the way that I want it to. I'm actually going to grab these. I select, not selecting. Slow down, Joshua. And again, these duplicate that one either. To make this seem a little bit wider here, and then I could probably select these, but we're going to be erasing a section of anyway. So what I'll do is I'm going to this, and I'm just going to rotate it here a little bit. I'm going to squash this a little bit more. Now we can rotate it. And what I can actually do is now I can come back in here and I can go into my eraser. And I don't have to be very exact because I can adjust this after the fact. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase out like this. And if I want to, I can match that color up. Now we can grab all of this folder. I can hold down Shift, and we can maintain that aspect lock, shrink this down. We can move that right down into this area here. Might even want to put this above the shadow. We'll create our own little cast shadow from this. Oh no, there's all kinds of different types of snapping. You can magnetic snap, you can snap to the grid, you can do lots of things. So yes, lots of snapping. I think we'll go to our shadow here and go into a fill edit, move this a little bit more appropriate from where our light source is coming from. So basically, we've created all of this stuff just by using these tools. I'm going to and then by easily changing our size from because it's a fill, it won't work. You can't change the size of, so let me just do another quick little demonstration here. Go to our stamp tool. I stamp this out here. The stamping and the fill elements, or the stroke elements, all will interact. They interact the same, but the stamp tool will interact differently. If I come into here, I cannot make this smaller or larger. But I can do it with the fill element. What I can do is I can rotate this, but it will not change the orientation of this. So it should be noted. It'll change the position if we have more than one thing here. So if I, for example, if I come back here and if I stamp another element, then the rotation, as you can see, they maintain their orientation, just their position. So stamping and the other elements do interact differently. That's why I didn't stamp anything on here yet. I wanted to get my base shape done and then change. Now I want to give this a little bit of weight, right? I want to change this so that we have a little bit of depth around here. I'm going to create another element that's going to kind of help me with that. I think what I can do here is I can duplicate this ring. And I can just move it underneath the other ring. Because it's a fill element, come back in here and go here, and I can hold down R, G, and B. Darken that up. And I'm going to move it too. I don't want it to match up perfectly with the other one. And I'm going to do, I think we'll do this. Make it feel as though that's a little bit of Build this around like this. That one. Nice. I think what we need to do is rotate this a little bit. Go into our. What we can actually do is hold down Shift, rotate the image, and I'm just going to line it up, make it a little bit smaller. Great. Yep, this is all built in Fantasy Grounds. All of the image creation tools are built right into Fantasy Grounds Unity. Oh, really? What's your day job? I think we'll make it a little bit darker too. I'm going to hold down RG and B, and we'll make that a little bit darker. And now we can start to decorate elements. I think we'll do like little stuff coming up and down from this. And then we can do a whole bunch of different stuff on there as well. Yeah, it's starting to look like a really cool environment, I think. You guys? Let's go into our decorations. And we can grab some of these kind of stuff along. And I think what we'll do is we'll build this up so it's like cities along this edge. Things hanging down and things going up. We might end up changing the color of it too. And we can go into our adjust colors here. Let's add a little bit of highlight top here. We'll have to do like a cast shadow on this as well. Oh, very cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think what we'll do is we'll create another folder. We'll drop this down inside of this folder. Add these two ring elements so that we can use that as all. Move that as one. We'll call this the ring. We might even create another painting layer. Drop this in here. And this can be actually probably two, right? So create another one. We'll up this underneath. Things coming down and things going up. Yeah, it's starting to look like a really cool kind of environment. I really am enjoying this. We might even want to do like a little shadow cast from the space station. Awesome. So I'm going to grab some of this stuff. We'll go into our stamp. But what we really want to do here, think about this. Okay. Got some stuff that have some rounded bottoms. And whenever you do this, you want to make sure you build from the back forward. We want to maintain some. Not really feeling I want it to. We got to change the colors of it, obviously. I want to do something that kind of comes up and down. Think about this for a moment. Well, it is break time. So I'm going to take a really short break here. I'm going to refresh my beverages and kind of think about how I want to approach this. I want to add a little bit more to this. And we'll probably just do like a really quick kind of creation process of this, and then in the last half we're gonna actually create like a world environment, an alien type area. So everyone, please hang out. Thanks everyone for joining me. I'm just gonna take a really quick break, as I said, and I will be right back. Oh, yep, I forgot to turn my microphone back on. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm back. Thanks for waiting. Hopefully, everybody can hear me now. You know what's funny too is I was while I was um, getting my beverages, I was like, oh, I wonder if I ever forget to turn my sound back on. And the answer is apparently yes. And I'm just going to drag this out, and we can kind of scale this to create this nice soft gradient kind of shadow. You guys are seeing how powerful this fill system is. Here. And now we have this awesome like mode here. Cast a little shadow there. And if we feel as though that these shadows are a little bit too dark or whatnot, we can just go back into those fill elements. We can lower down the opacity of them. And that will allow, we'll just soften up those shadows some. And let's go to this layer here. I'm going to grab, let's go into the brushes, operations, and grab some of these elements and just kind of do some stuff that's like hanging down. We don't want to fill, we want stamp. We can also turn off our aspect lock ratio and make things and I'm just kind of placing random elements around here. And then we can go into our Layers tab, Adjustments. Maybe we'll do this. And of course, we'll have to do all of our shadows on here and whatnot. As I said, I don't want to spend too much time. I could get totally lost in creating this. Be very easy for me to do. So let's move on. We'll shelve this. What should we call this map? And we'll close that down. All right, now we're going to create like a really cool kind of alien environment. We're going to be using lots of different art packs to do this. One of the best ones I found is like the underwater art pack. Uh, Underwater creations tend to just seem alien in general. But I'm going to keep it rather lush. We're going to be doing that green planet that's kind of in the forefront there. We're just going to create like a battle map size map. So something that players would be able to investigate. But we're going to try and do some like cool, interesting stuff with it. So let's start off. I'm going to go into the 2019 art package, and we're going to go into the tiles here and our images. I'm just going to create a new item, and let's just drag this out. Good workspace here. I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to change this to 100 by 100. I'm going to keep the grid on for this. I'm just going to lower down its opacity quite a lot. So I can still use it. It's just not intrusive to the design that doesn't really add too much interference. And I'm going to grab one of these elements. Do you think we should do light earth or dark earth for the surrounding earth elements? We're going to be using lots of different stuff. Sure, let's do dark. I'm going to come into here. I'm going to turn off my stroke, and I am going to grab this one. Now this is going to look rather repeating in the creation process. Oh, I don't want to use that. Start again here. Here's my rectangle. Let's not do too crazy of a large environment. Nice. As you can see here, we've created about 40 by 34. And we can come into here and we can make sure that we have snapped to the grid appropriately. So let's just back up. Then I'm going to go into my stamp tool, and I'm going to do this right in the same area here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my decoration. I'm going to grab some of this grass. And I'm just going to stamp some of these around and break up. Repeating. Then I'm going to lower down my opacity and further changing the size and the rotation. This is going to give me some nice little elements. Earth poking through. And I can always come back in, and if I want to, I can move around. Cool. Now let's start to build up some other areas here. And again, we're going to be doing this as kind of like an alien environment. So sky's the limit, right? We're not going to use any standard trees. We're not going to do any of that kind of stuff. This is going to be probably the most basic. We're going to do some rock formations and stuff as well, but we're going to create our rather unique kind of environment here. And if we want to go back, um, to our planet here, we can kind of see the colors that we're going to be using, and see we have these like reddish kind of rocks and whatnot. And the ground is going to be quite lush, so we can match this up pretty well here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go onto this particular painting layer, and we can go over and we can make some kind of adjustments. Down our blue, make this a little bit more intense in our green. Move this over. Kind of well. Great. Now we have a lot of these red kind of rock formations, and why don't we do that next? I'm going to show you how to use some of these rock formations. We can use as fill layers as well and create more interesting shapes. Let's go into our painting layer and our next layer here, and we're going to call this one G for backgrounds, and we're going to call this one rocks. We might even want to do a couple of layers of rocks here. So in our desert map pack, here we have some really great like reddish kind of rock formation. And some of these are actually quite large. If we were to drag and drop these out, for example, we have some good indications of sizes. Now the great thing about these larger rocks is because we can use these as our textures. Let's delete these. And we can go back into our painting area here. This time I'm actually going to we'll use like this as my fill element. And I'm going to turn on my stroke here. I'm going to make it smaller, but this is going to put a line around the actual outside. One of the reasons why I do this is because you want to have a good separation between certain items, right? All of my assets always have like a dark line around them, and that is for that purpose. It is most of the time we're going to be looking at maps from much further away than something like this close as this. So you need to have good separation between all the different elements. It needs to be easily identifiable. So with this all set up here, what I can actually do is, let's say, for example, I want to create interesting shape here. Rock. I can now go into my fill area here, enlarge this. And let's double click this and simplify. And I'm going to start to follow some of the shapes of the rock elements that I have here. Make it feel a little bit more natural. And I can add to this and I can remove from it, even though this isn't like a true like texture. naturally kind of designed to be. We can still create any shape that we wish here. I'm going to go to my circle over here, and let's going to grab, make sure that I'm still in the same area here, because when we add to it, we need to have all of our parameters the same, or it will not add to it properly. Then I can out a little bit of a circle over here. And I'm just doing this to create a little bit extra geometry. I can just get lost doing this stuff. This all day. Move this one over here. And again, I'm just going to follow a little bit of the geometry that we have there. And there we have this really interesting kind of rock shape that doesn't naturally come, but we've created it all on our own. Now you can do this a couple of different ways here. And we can, oh, hey Jiminy. Oh, I'm not sure. You know what? I haven't checked on that in a while. I will certainly do that. I'll check on that right after the stream. See what's going on there. And we can start to do this a couple of different ways. As you see here, we can do this, and we can do this, and as it creates this line around it, it's going to match up really well with some of the other elements in addition to. Let's go into our rocks, and let's build a couple on our own as well using the stamp tool. The way that I always used to kind of do this. You can see that here we have almost exactly the same kind of line around it by default. So placing this nearby, we're going to get a very natural kind of interaction between these two elements. Yeah, you bet. Thanks for reminding me. And this is how you can use your fill elements in conjunction with some of these other elements and make it seem seamless in their connection to each other. So let's. I'm actually going to grab some of these other kind of rock formations. I'm going to build up a little bit of an area here. I'm going to do. You know what else would be cool? Let's. We'll build out some. I'm going to do like a kind of like an archway here. I feel like that's like the go-to for alien environments, right? And we can grab some of these and kind of just sprinkle this around as well. I think what I'll do is I'll make another layer and we'll put it underneath. We can have some of this stuff. Now, obviously, this will seem a lot more natural. Our shadows and whatnot. Cool. Before we go too much further, let's actually do that. We'll create a effects layer. We're going to do an adjust colors, not time of day. I wonder if we could use time of day. Kind of cool, actually. Let's try it. And we're going to add a mask. Then what we're actually going to do is just like some nice cast shadows off of stuff. We want to be going to blur this out. We don't have to be too exact with this because we are, in fact, going to blur out. And let's intensify this a little bit. We'll do it like this. We can lower down the amount. Subtle. Like that, I think will work good. You can see how using these little incidental shadows and around stuff can really help change the way that that kind of feels there. Awesome. So now that we have a base kind of understanding here of what's going on, and we can also use this to create like elevation elements as well. So if I duplicate this, right, I'm going to clear the mask and create a new one. We're going to lower down the amount here, but we can create some adjustments. Maybe we have raised up areas. Might even want to lower down that a little bit more. Yeah, so we just have these variations. That's going to work really good for us. Awesome. Let's get into our vegetation because this is where we're going to really start to change the atmosphere. We're going to be using a lot of these effects here in lots of different ways. One underneath. So we're going to go up to our underwater art pack, I think is here. We have lots of these cool underwater organisms. And this is going to work really good for us. And I'm going to show you how I have these designed to kind of go up over rocks and do things rather interestingly. And so what we can actually do is kind of build these as they kind of climb up over the rocks, but we can also create lots of cool stuff and around as well. What I'm actually going to show you how to do is I'm going to use a fill layer. I'm going to duplicate it a couple of times. to create these kind of random, not really random because it's gonna do it automatically here, but I'm just gonna show you a cool way to do this. Let's create a new painting layer. We're gonna put this down in, do it over the rocks for right now. I'm gonna turn off my stroke. I'm gonna grab something like this. Let's find something good that we can kind of use as like sort of covering here. And maybe we'll do something like this. Let's drop this in here. I'm going to go to my rectangle. Well, actually, let's use ellipse. Create a new element here, and we're going to do something like this, right? Now we can add to it as well, make it a little bit more of an interesting shape. So here we have very static kind of looking thing here, right? But what we can do is we can duplicate this. We can put this right on the top here. Change the rotation of this. And we might even want to go down into here and maybe we change the size. We can start to create like these patches that we can then build upon. Now we're creating this rather quickly. We're building up these texture areas really quickly. Let's put this under our rocks here. Name this and we'll grab these. I'm actually going to put these into a folder together. So I can just select the folder here. We can just go into here and we can play around. And you can see how quickly that I have created rather interesting collection of. And by doing this, I'm also going to change their color here. I can grab sections of this and I can drag this out. Right? We might even want to add in one additional layer. Let's duplicate it. And again, we can go into our fill element. Maybe we'll make this one smaller and we'll rotate it around. And again, we can go into our folder here, grab these sections, bring these areas around. We don't really care if it gets cut off. We're just using this as like background kind of elements. And we can separate them, right? We can always go into individually. Where we can make them more or less. Right? Like where these things kind of overlap. This is how we're using fill elements in ways that they are be used on lots of different images. Drag this out until we get kind of a little bit of closure there. And you certainly don't have to do that. Probably players won't even notice. I tend to a little bit of less of it. Yeah, that's pretty good. You might want to just do add over here. Those. Add this, that, and there. Fan this out. Just finish off this one. Then over. We can create these little patches. Manipulating all of these little elements. Cool. Now let's go into our folder itself. And that's we can change the color of all of these independent and in unison. We can also do it independently, but I'm going to make these a little bit more green, I think. A little bit like bluier green. We can also lower down the opacity of it. Something like this. Now we get this really cool kind of layered effect. And we could even go in, if we wanted to, go into the, we could fade out these edges. And then we have, yeah, a really nice kind of transition here. These like alien kind of plants. Might even want to grab some of this stuff and round and what. And because it's a fill, don't remember we can come in here and we can rotate these. Grab the hexadecimal code. This that. Control C to grab that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And now what we can do is layer some stuff on top of there. We might even want to, we can even duplicate this entire folder. And then maybe this one will get even lower. We'll actually put the bottom. Yeah, that looks cool. In a similar fashion, we can our painting layer. Let's jump over into our stamp tool. We'll grab along these lines. What are we going to use for trees though, actually? Maybe what we'll do is we'll use like this for like these large trees. Stuff like that. Patches here. Build up some larger ones. We can go into our time of day here and just make sure that we add in our little bit of shadow content for these. Make them feel a little bit more like they're part of the environment. Now a trick that I like to do, I'm going to do a little bit more of this. This will be kind of like the bushes of our alien world here. I want to do that on a separate. To make sure that I click my layers. And then we'll go to the text layer here. Here. And what we can do is we can actually take this, we can duplicate this layer as well. Go into our tab here and move it around. Because this is a stamped tool, their orientation is going to stay the same. It's just their position. Again, this is another way that we can create content very quickly. And if I move this, what it does is it just concentrates the images. Doesn't actually change their rotation. I can go into tab here and I can grab some of them. Well, out here. This is a way that you can duplicate the same images, or even you can do multiple different stuff, but just duplicate it very, very quickly by duplicating the layer or even entire folder. And then I just jump back into my time of day, deal area. We can just generate some new shadow content for some. That works really. We can use lots of these coral formations and whatnot to create some really stuff. Maybe we'll use like these find something that's going to work really well for like our trees. Maybe we'll use this. Let's try it. Let's create a new painting layer. Also use that. We go to our stamp tool. Well, it's a little bit too small of an image because it degrades too much, I think. We could use something like this. So here, what we're going to do is, yeah, let's use a combination of images here. We're going to create one tree, and then we're going to use it to kind of populate the area. Let's grab like this. Be our center area. And we can kind of come in here and move. Yeah, so we'll make like a tree, something along these lines. This will be our tree, our alien world tree. And we'll create a folder. Call this trees. We'll put this inside of that folder. And then while in here, we can duplicate it, and we'll duplicate and keep it right inside of that folder. Drag this out. As you can see, by rotating this, what we're actually going to do is not going to change the facing of it, but what it will do is it'll create a variety of these trees that we're going to be building here, right? So if we build a couple like this, and then we can grab both of these and duplicate them. Each individual one can then be moved on its own, rotated to change. Then we could grab all of these, duplicate them. Might even want to then move them independently of each other. We can even shrink them down here, make them a little bit tighter. Oh, is there a keyboard shortcut for rotating? Nope. It depends. So if we're in our painting mode, right, if we're stamping, There is. So here I'm using Control and mouse wheel to change its size. I can use Shift and mouse wheel to rotate it. But we were in our Layers tab. All of the shortcuts change, or most of them change dependent on the tab that we're in up top here. Get our shadows now for our tree. Yep, that's right. And that'll work the same with some of the other painting elements as well. That's in the painting tab. Rough up some of it. Make it feel as though that, because they're such jagged shapes. I think what we'll do too is let's create another not painting tab, but FX layer. And we're kind of winding down on our stream here as we're getting closer to the end. So if anyone has any questions or if they want me to demonstrate anything, please let me know before we get too close to the end here. I think I'm going to do an adjust colors. What we'll do is we'll increase our create some highlights here. Again, we'll enable a mask. Nice, bright shine on certain things. See here, we're going to increase our blur amount here. Now this kind of goes along with the map that we were working on earlier, right? So if we pull that up, created this planet and space station here. We have this this is the actual planet map that we're kind of working. Built this area, and we want to kind of maintain that kind of on our alien world. We might even want to bring down the blur of that. Make our not so bloomy. We can do a much more subtle one on the ground. Areas that are more shadow heavy. And we can always come in here and lower down some of, right, so right there. I think we will go in and do more of the specular kind of. I think we can go into our back layer, add in a little bit of texture top of our stuff. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into Siege. No, let's go into the actually go into our winter map pack. And I'm going to go into the effects here, go into my stamp. I'm going to grab something this. I'll lower down my opacity quite a lot to make this a bit red, darker. And this is just going to break up some of that stuff. Color variations are super important. I think we might even go in, make these a little bit more like lower opacity. Or you know what we should actually do? Let's go into our a little bit smaller, I think. Yeah. We can actually lower down their opacity. Yeah, that's a lot better for our kind of texture. Well, let's move these around so we don't get much of a pattern. Go into here. I think what we'll nice texture. Another cool thing that you can kind of do to make otherworldly kind of environments. Let's put in another layer here. I'm actually going to our bushes. Get a folder under our rocks. Create one more painting layer. Put this under our trees, but above everything else. What I'm actually going to do, let's go into our space, fantastic space. I'm actually going to use something like this, I think. We could do something. Let's grab one of these backgrounds. I'm actually going to go into my fill. I want something that's too. I want something that we can kind of use to create rather cool. Our stroke is off. Yeah, this works. We make sure we have our rectangle. I'm just going to cover the area here. We can go into this tab and we can lower down our opacity. Not yet. We will be doing that. Now with this low here, what I can actually do is I can come into the subtract area. I want to subtract out the tops of all of these rocks. Isn't that interesting? Additional element even though action mode. A little bug there. Let's perhaps we have to go to here, grab this action mode. Maybe if we close it and reopen it here real quick. No, well, we'll get that working. But basically, what I'm kind of looking at here, let's change make this large. I'm going to make this otherworldly kind of mist here. And we can fade out these edges. And what we can do is kind of grab these out beyond my, we can snap it to the one square out here. And then what we can do is we can go to the effects layer here, for example. Once we cut out all of the areas that we want to do, we might even do some additional kind of areas here. And then what we can do is we can create, we have this little button here, create effects layer using the painting as a mask. Once we have this all squared away, right, we can do this. And we can add in like a water on it. Well, that didn't quite work appropriately, but that's okay. Now let's get rid of the droplet. And let's move the speed down a lot. We're going to drop this down in underneath the and hide area. I think we'll do larger kind of elements. Move. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to be calling it here for the stream today. Do you guys have any questions, or is there anything that I could explain? Is there something that I did? You're not quite sure how I did it? We're going to finish up both of these maps next week. Yeah, you bet. I stream almost every Saturday from 3 p.m. And then we run till about 5:30 or 6, depending on what we're doing. But lots of cool stuff. And as I said, we're going to finish up both of these. What we're going to do is we're going to finish up our little um, base station that we created here. We made this all from just fills. Then we're going to made this entire image here. And then we're going to finish up our alien landscape. We're going to do lots of cool stuff with this. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for joining me today, and we'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody.